You are listening to the Getting Smart podcast. I'm Rebecca Midles, and on October 27th, I'll be facilitating a panel at the Full Scale Symposium, where I'll be joined by leaders who are driving state-level innovation across the country. Some of these leaders will join me on the panel, and some will likely be pulled into conversation from the audience. To dig deeper into these journeys, I wanted to get a head start by speaking with some of these leaders, and that's what you're going to hear today. Today, we're traveling to the great state of Michigan. Dave Richards is the Executive Director of the Future Learning Council Group, which we love to shorten to FLC. Educators, we love to do that. And we will be discussing the great work happening there and how a member-driven coalition of school districts and intermediate school districts called ISDs are making inroads to statewide transformation. We will get to this shortly, but first, Dave, we've known each other for over a decade, I think, and I have certainly been in the work of personalized learning as you have for much longer. I think there may have been a fun memory that has you on a stage performance as a national conference with you.
I do remember, but it was in Orlando. And Virgil, our fearless leader, was behind that debacle of dragging us up on stage and, checking all humility. Let's go.
I think there was some dancing, some
Yeah.
instruments, right? It was a really strong metaphor.
Yes. It was a very active, moving, physical activity that Virgil just didn't seem to have any concern persuading us to get up there and get it done.
No, he doesn't. That's what's so great about him. And I had a front row seat to watch you all. It was great. It was lovely. All right. So this is also a time where you were superintendent at Fraser Public Schools. You know how I value practitioners in this work that have actually done the work that they're leading and speak into and give back to. You have done this at several levels in the world of personalized learning. When you were at Fraser, it became a model for others to come and observe, come see, visit. I think you invited everyone in.
Yeah.
And by doing so and by opening those doors to visit, I would say, to learn alongside you, you actually probably started some of this kind of network thinking and I think culture for that piece. Now you're the forefront of the Future Learning Council, a board-driven organization, which we can talk about the board members too, of superintendents who are also members. Now you have an ISD representative as well. And they rely on being responsive and they build strong partnerships that connect with the community, they connect across the state. Can you take us back to that initial meeting? What was the shared vision that compelled your group to start building a coalition from the ground up?
Well, I'll tell you, as a superintendent in Michigan at the time, we started our competency-based work in 2012, and we did all of it pretty much internally. We obviously traveled around the country, met folks like you, Virgil, others that were out there, Chris Sturgis, that were doing the work, and really started considering how do we redesign our system from the inside out. And we at the time decided that we were going to do a full K-12 transformation versus focusing on one school, one classroom. And it was a big lift. It took a lot of work. And as we got into it, 5-6 years into it, we decided that we wanted to try to build a coalition within the state. In fact, I have the original email that I sent out to colleagues saying, would anyone be interested? And they were kind of handpicked leaders from across the state in getting together and talking through what competency-based looks like. You bring your team, I'll have my team there. We'll buy lunch and let's spend a day sharing, our ideas and our best practices. And what started off as a pretty small, intimate group turned into, over the years, 19 districts. I retired in 2018 and the group asked, would you continue to facilitate? And of course, it's a passion area, trying to drive this level of work in Michigan, not just for Fraser, but for other school districts. And the pandemic happened and things kind of went into health and safety mode. Everyone was circling the wagons to take care of kids and staff and, trying to figure out which way they were going to emerge from the pandemic. And when we did emerge, that same group of leaders got together, 4 in particular, myself, John Van Wagner, who was at Traverse City Area Schools, Chris Timmis at Dexter, and Kelly Coffin, now at Farmington. But we got together and just said, let's relaunch it. Michigan Virtual has been a huge part of that with our work, sponsoring our work and supporting my time and energy to do it. And in 21, we thought maybe we'll get 5 or 10 districts that'll be interested in doing this. And that number went to 25 within 6 months. And it really showed us that there's such a huge appetite right now from district leaders, from ISD leaders who are past the why and they're into the how and what. They really want to get together and talk about what does this look like in our school district? And everyone has used the term personalized learning almost to the point where it's lost its shine. And what we needed was proof of concept. We needed to see examples and we needed to help each other design what those models might look like, regardless of where you come from geographically. How do we do this work? And so from 2021, the fall of 2021, launch to today, now we're over 70 organizations, public schools and charters, ISDs, and we meet every month. We average about 100 individuals at each monthly meeting, and it's growing. I mean, this summer I think we've brought 4 more ISDs on this summer, a couple more school districts, and it's really just been a coalition of the willing, Rebecca. I mean,
Mhm.
you've had the opportunity to be a part of this work for the last 18 months or so, and I think you've seen that there's an authentic desire to
Absolutely.
do better for kids, and so we're excited about where it's at and some of the work that's ahead of us, but I would say the greatest challenge in doing the work, both as a superintendent and now as facilitator, executive director of this group, is we're getting to the point where people need to see the how and what. We need to have proof of concept, and that means a lot of systems conversations. It's talking about how do you build a new system while you're also trying to maintain and survive an existing system. And that's been really good conversations, but also you see the human side of this work and it's challenging.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting. I did get to see a lot of that journey, not all of it certainly, but the pieces that I remember coming in and just really standing out to me was that level of commitment and that network that I think was, certainly there before the pandemic, probably got stronger during the pandemic, where they're really sharing in story. And to have a group that size now, even more so as they've gotten bigger, to meet and commit to showing up to be in community once a month to the
Yeah.
school year, that's quite a commitment. And that's a member driven choice. I mean, sometimes they can't. Maybe they watch it later. You have a recording that you do. You have people sometimes call in because it's not always easy to get to from different places and different times of the year. But you definitely feel that commitment. It's people who want to be there. They're excited to see one another. And it's really done a lot to shape, I think, the culture and people sharing what they're doing well and what they would like help on. You've done a great job. It's really
Oh,
noteworthy.
thank you. You know, it's interesting. We're seeing this waterfall effect by leaders too, where they're replicating the work at the local levels. ISDs considering standing up their own FLC-ish type of group to talk about innovation, learning. You know, we're maturing to the point where we've got to start differentiating with the group now because we need to break it into cohorts, start thinking about giving a different type of work at each of these meetings because districts are at such different places. But what's interesting, and this was a big part of the development, in the beginning, we were laser focused on the superintendents
Mhm.
because we knew we had to build their capacity to lead innovative work, not
Right.
just shiny object technology work, but true instructional design work. And a lot of superintendents aren't always comfortable with that, especially when you're futurescaping and talking about, hey, where will learning be in 3 years from now? How do we design for that? Superintendents would literally call me on their way home and say, I'm halfway home. It's a 2 hour drive. I've had 2 phone calls from board members. I've had an expulsion that I have to deal with. I have pretty much forgotten half of what we talked about today.
Right.
Can I start to bring my team to these meetings? And we said, absolutely. You bring whoever you need to bring that's going to help you bring this vision forward because and you obviously have facilitated a lot of these conversations. Developing that shared vision is critical
Mhm.
in helping a district to have the courage to do this work to go forward. When it's a single person trying to lead this, even if it is the superintendent, that's very difficult. You have to have everyone talking about what do we expect from student learning? What will success look like in our district? And I think that was the powerful part of it. Once we open that up, then districts are like, okay, now we're ready to come in. Let's talk this through. And it's more than just sit and get. It's truly getting in there and workshopping ideas doing designs, creating at the local level what they're seeing happening across the country.
Yeah, I can certainly hear your past experience as superintendent in that share. And I mean, you and I have been at the leadership level for districts and how powerful it is to have a team because it really is a shared ownership and it just helps get things done and people feel like they're a part of that work versus doing it to them or for them, but with them. I think that's super powerful that you highlight that. We also know that superintendents sometimes don't stay. And so you want that work to be rooted before that happens and having that group come in is really important for that sustainability.
What's interesting too is that we're kind of developing our farm club, our bench team, because we identify aspiring leaders in the room. And then
Mhm.
as positions open, it's like a sticky vision when they go from one district to the next. Now they're taking the FLC with them to that next district. So their existing district, they're a part of the FLC. Now their new district is also a part of it. And the person who was an assistant superintendent has become a superintendent. Now you start building, real mass, critical mass in the state. You know, the FLC probably 4 to 500,000 students represented in that
Mm.
group. And there's only 1.4 million in the whole state. So it's pretty incredible. And we've done no advertising. This has only been by word of mouth and by colleagues talking to one another and saying, you got to get in this room. You want to be a part of this conversation. And we take a very strong position on saying our motto is build nothing for us without us. We want to take back the conversation around where learning is going in the state of Michigan, and it should come from the field. We just need to rebuild trust that the community, the business leaders, that they'll trust us that we're going down a path of innovation rather than clinging to and sustaining an old model that just doesn't fit anymore.
Well said. I imagine that speaks to a lot of people that are listening to this work as well. And so when I think about what you just shared, so it's a member-driven organization. You've got individual districts, you've got ISDs. How do you balance those needs of an individual district and a region and keep that momentum going in the field if it's not a mandate from the state?
Well, I think that there's such a hunger right now post pandemic. I think society has a new ask. I think districts are realizing, regardless if you're rural, suburban, urban, that we have to put a very different product in front of kids. Kids want flexibility, they want choice, they want freedom, they want experiences that are about engagement rather than seat time. So, for us as the architects of learning, we need to gather and talk about, and we say this all the time, we want our best thinkers in the state in the same room on a regular basis. And that draws in people that have said, I'm literally have had superintendents say, I thought I was the only one thinking this way. Lake City schools in Michigan, rural, northern Michigan, fantastic superintendent, fantastic director of curriculum, really doing innovative work. And they felt like they were on an island. So
Mm.
we've given them a sandbox to come in,
Yeah.
share their notes, talk about what they're doing, connect with people. They get to talk to you. They're like, I can't imagine we have an opportunity to just talk to Rebecca or Tom or Nate, anyone from the Getting Smart team to really talk through what we're doing. And the structure has provided them freedom to process and to think, fail forward, and that's really been the powerful part of it is their networks are growing. They're visiting each other outside of the FLC. They're hearing about something that a district is doing in the state and they're like, can I come and visit, or can we jump on a Zoom call and talk about, I really want to hear how you've handled experience-based grading. I really want to learn, what does that look like? Moving them into a competency. We're developing a shared vision, Rebecca, you know this. We're developing
Yes.
a shared vision for statewide around competency-based learning. What does that look like? How do we do it with fidelity within the state so that people have confidence that the rigor hasn't been diminished, that we're still assessing kids at a deep level, but we're allowing them to demonstrate mastery in a lot of different ways. And
Yeah.
and that's, I think, the powerful part of the work as
Yeah.
well.
I love that open sharing, that true network, that collaborative spirit. We've already kind of shared how some districts are already collaborating and working together. Maybe you could share another, or if there's an example of ISDs, but what are ways that, significantly that are showing up, that are showing impact that others have noticed?
Well, it's interesting. I think the ISDs, they've been in the room pretty heavily in the last year, and they're really seeing that there's a place for them to step into a leadership role around transformation in learning. And
Mm,
that is fantastic. They
it is.
have the best relationships with the local districts. They know the staff, they know the leaders. We're never going to, as an organization, as a Future Learning Council, we're never going to step into that consulting role in that way. The ISDs have the ability to close the distance between local districts and innovation, and doing it in a systemic way that allows them to really have it be reflective of their community. So that's powerful. So
Yes.
the exciting part of that is, for instance, a Muskegon area ISD on the west side of the state over on Lake Michigan, they're building an entire team with the skills to be able to go out to local districts and be thought partners with them, be project managers with them, assess where they're at, and then start mapping a path forward and saying, okay, within 1 year, let's be here. Within 2 years, let's be here. But they have the innovation framework that you've developed with your team, and it's there for as a roadmap for them. Doesn't mean we're all going to do the exact same work,
Right.
but there's a roadmap that kind of serves as a boundary for we're here today. We want to be here within 3 years, 4 years. And that's where I think we're going to get to where we can have some exemplar districts in the state with a shared vision. So that if I talk about competency based learning in Southeast Michigan and they're talking about it in Northern Michigan, we're talking the same language.
Mhm.
Then I think we're going to hit that tipping point where it gains really incredible momentum, which is very exciting.
I hope that people are hearing this because we definitely know that there's a shift about state accountability. But I think that shift needs to go that next level, like what you're highlighting is what is already in place in your state that knows your area in a regional way,
Mhm.
knows that culture, those enabling conditions, what are the drivers there, and you already have probably something like a borough or an ESD or an ISD already in place and really taking advantage of those centers. I mean, I was fortunate enough to meet with the ISDs, thanks to you and your support, but like to be able to meet with them beforehand and on their own and just really wanting to step in and lead this work as a sustainable effort. And that's what we believe in at Getting Smart. That's why working with you guys has always been so easy because there's so much willingness to do this work and want to see it, through and not just a flash, but really like what does this look like at a long term and how will this improve the lives of the students and families that we serve? It's really quite legendary, I think. I think it's really wonderful to see it unfolding, and we hope to cover some more, and we'll probably have to do another podcast with some of these ISD leaders too.
Well, I think that nationally, having conversations with leaders from other states, there's a huge interest in being able to replicate something like this because there's just so much power in a cohort. We talk about this all the time. We're all pulling the rope in the same direction, but everyone's trying to do it on their own.
Mhm.
Why would we do that? Why not come together and share? Here's what's working for us. Here's a prototype that we found that's really effective. And I think that's where hopefully Getting Smart can pull together like the best examples of that across the country, share the models, get people in the same room. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. And I think that's an extremely important part of this work. It's happening across the country. Michigan, honestly, we've been behind and we're hitting the accelerator button right now. And it's coming from what we call the coalition of the willing, getting them into the room. And these are doers. These are people that don't just sit and learn and then go home and nothing changes. They go
Absolutely.
back to their districts and they're being intentional with time. They're being intentional with resources, with staffing. How do we create these models? And I think that's the exciting part of it. We didn't get here overnight. Like our system has been in place for a long time. It's going to take some time to get to where we want to go, but we can shorten that distance by coming together. And I think that's the power of it. We have charters in the room as well as public schools. There's no separation for us because if you love kids, if you want to do the right thing by kids, we want you in the room. We want you to be a
Right.
part of these conversations. And so I think it's just time to get to that place where we design student centered and we do it from an administrative lens of action.
Mm. I love that. I love that. For people who don't know Michigan very well, and if you don't, I'm sorry because you're missing out. But if you don't know Michigan very well, you've got that large urban, you've got rural, you've of course got suburban. And, there are some areas in the state that are very hard to get to. And I would be remiss, those that know me, if I didn't mention some similarities to Alaska. There are some challenges to get to some of the locations in that state. And you've made an opportunity for people to come on and call and to come when they can. And like you said, really trying to take it to them and collaborate. What are the things that you think when you're serving some of those communities that may not get a lot of access to that? Like what's your commitment to increasing high quality options for those places that are a little bit more removed, maybe have even traditionally underserved communities? You talked a little bit about it, but do you have some intentional strategies that you think others would be able to benefit from hearing?
Well, I think scalability is the biggest challenge we're facing right now. In every state, there are pockets of innovation where everyone's like, oh, yeah, go visit this school district, go visit that school district. A lot of times it's dependent upon who's the leader, who's that team. They've built a strong foundation over time, but it's not a sticky vision where there's a lot of districts that are doing it. So for us in Michigan, we think about as remote as possible, how do we shorten the distance between them and this high impact professional learning that we're trying to put in front of them? Obviously, we're leveraging Zoom, giving them as much opportunity. They don't want to drive. I mean, you could drive 9 hours in Michigan to get to a meeting. It's that far apart, right? That's impossible for a leader to be able to do that on a monthly basis. The second part of it is, and this is where I think the conversation with getting smart is right now in Michigan Virtual, how do we develop a portal of resources? And we always use the term 2 clicks or less, that if I'm a leader and I'm trying to find access to something, I don't want to go on an Easter egg hunt. I want to be able to go to a repository of resources that are directly related to personalized competency-based learning and have access to those and answer questions. And obviously with AI bots and everything else right now, it's ridiculous that we don't have something that's at the fingertips of every leader. And if the FLC can serve as a clearinghouse or a gathering resource for that, that's fantastic. Why would we not do that so that every child has the opportunity to have a leader who can get easy access to that? What we have to take away are all the invisible turnstiles that people run into around innovation.
Mm,
If you're trying to do it and you've got a million other things on your plate and you can't take a half an hour because you got a lot of other pressures, you're not going to do it. And so it doesn't happen. And then another year goes by and another year goes by. Meanwhile, those kids are graduating and going through the system. We're shaking their hand and sending them off the stage and they're not ready. So what can we do to really provide resources just in time and or repository easy access? And that's part of our work, is building that type of a tool to make that happen for districts.
You are always paying attention to the newest trends. You help me as well. And we have such great conversations because of it. But what's a trend or new idea you're seeing that you think will become central to that next wave of what we're referring to when we say innovation? Is it
Yeah,
AI?
AI obviously is out there, and I'm not going to talk
Sure.
about it because there's a million other people talking
That's
about it.
right.
But I would say structurally, and this is a lot of work that you've done at Getting Smart, I think micro schools are like cracking the code. I think that's a great way. I mentioned Fraser earlier. We did a K-12 change to move to competency based. It took a lot longer to make that happen because we were doing full scope and sequence,
Mhm.
everything within the district. It moving 300 teachers versus moving 5 teachers, right? The micro school idea to me opens the door to on ramp and to innovate without the level of disruption that a lot of district leaders are afraid of. There's an insecurity with doing that level of scale. How can we help people understand what a micro school powered could be? I think about examples of choice.
Mhm.
Everyone's comfortable with choice right now. You can choice inside the campus.
That's
You
right.
can have 3 micro schools operating under one roof. The kids can still play football together. They can still be in band together. You just don't have bells. And some kids are opting into a traditional model, and other kids are taking, a career technical education model that's competency based. They're taking a
Mhm.
performing arts model that's competency based. If I were still sitting in the chair, I guarantee you that's where I would be living with for our kids, because that's the fun. I mean, our goal is to drive engagement, right? Get
Yes, sir.
kids where they're running into the building, not running out of it. And if you can create opt-in learning experiences, parents are going to love it. Kids are going to love it. We're at that point where it's a non-negotiable. We have to figure out how to make it happen. So if I'm talking to any leader nowadays, I say, do your homework on micro schools, dig into that, and then go through a reflection activity, a design sprint, whatever you got to do to say, how could this help our kids, and have fun with it.
I love that. I love the way that you frame it the way I prefer it to be framed, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about micro schools feeling like a private or exclusive or very
Yeah.
small or nano or only a certain context. But really what I see the strength of it is, and what I think you just did a great job of explaining, is how can it be used as an innovation lab within your own comprehensive district or comprehensive school system to try out things that you know to be great for kids, but your system might make an obstacle. So what are some ways that you could really start to do some of that innovative work that people can be a part of it, they can see it unfold, and it can also, those things can be scalable.
Yeah.
How what you find works there, how can that then start to come out across the whole school? And maybe a micro school is needed for a certain interest or context, but what you learn or the strategies you apply there actually transfer out and should show up across your system if you know they're great for kids. I just wish more people understood that. So wonderful. Thank you for highlighting that, Dave, as usual.
Well, here's the crazy part is, and I think this has been part of what's held us back. We try to innovate within a system that was designed to sort and select.
That's right.
So why not hit the easy button and say, well, we're going to leave the sort and select one. If that's truly where you want to be, mom, dad, child, you can still opt into that. But we're also going to create this really innovative competency-based model that says if you can complete algebra A, algebra B in a shorter amount of time, we're going to allow you to move faster. We're going to unlock work-based experiences for you. We're going to create pathways for you. Those, and what ends up happening is they'll wean off of that traditional safety bubble, the old game, and they'll say, I'm passionate about career and technical education, or I'm passionate about health sciences. I want to be in that micro school. I want to be a part of that community and still stay with my friends and play football and be in the band and all that. But leaders get so fixated, and this is a big challenge of, I have to make it fit within what I know. And it's very difficult to do that because you're still worried about bells, you're still worried about buses, you're worried about what's, and that is the hardest path you can go versus saying, how do we design and become architects of learning? It's not that our schools are broken, but we need to design new models and be creative with it. And I think micro schools, to me, that's where I would spend a good semester with my administrative team, just digging in and saying, what are the possibilities for us? What could we do for our kids if we really pushed this conversation?